Hello and welcome back to Christa's Dress Shop. I'm Christa, and in the last video I did the hem on this tulle bridal gown, and today I'm going to add a slit. The bride wanted to have a slit going down her left leg, and so I've added a pin for how high she wants it, and I'm going to show you guys how to do that, especially in a gown that doesn't have a seam. If it had a seam right here, it would be so easy because I could just open up the seam and secure it. But this one has no seam. I've got to create basically a seam right there. So join me. We're going to come in and I'll show you a few tips. Okay, so like I said in the last video, we went ahead and hemmed that, and the reason is I wanted to just get the extra out of the way so that it wasn't bunching, so I can actually see this laying nice and smoothly. I did have to leave some of the rolled hem undone just so that I can do this and then do the rolled hem. I have the bride usually show me on her legs how high she wants to go, and I usually put a safety pin and about where she wants it to go. And the trick is we got to open up every layer, and there is no seam here. And I don't want it to kind of go off to one side or the other. So that's where this little trick comes handy. I had this, you could do it with anything. Along the road, I got like a keychain which has a measuring tape in it from one of my suppliers a long time ago. And I always have it hanging in my sewing studio. I put a string to it, a really strong thread. And a lot of times when I'm reapplying appliques in the front, and I don't want them to be to one side or another. You know those pointed appliques that if you had it off, it wouldn't match? So I usually will take this, like a plumb line, basically, and drop it down the front so that I can get my applique in the right way. Well, we're going to use the same idea, just a weight, and we're going to hang it over the area that she wants the slit. And then I'm going to just put a pin in there and let that hang. Okay, I don't know if you can see this. Here is my safety pin. Here is my string. And right here at the end is hanging the weight, whatever weight you want to use. And that is just dropping straight down. You can kind of see it hanging right there. And that is going to show me what a straight line straight from here all the way down is. Now, it's your choice how you're going to mark that. You can mark it with your marking pen. You can do some different little straight pins, but basically you need to get that line onto each and every one of your layers. So like this, I'm going to go ahead and let it hang free. Can you see that? Right in there. And I'm going to mark how high. Trying to get through a couple of those layers. And I'm going to follow that through. I actually need to lower that just a little bit so I can follow it through all the way down to the floor. And then all I'm going to do is these outer layers I'm going to trim straight up, and then I'll show you what I'm going to do with the other layers. And seamstresses, if you have done many of these, how do you do it? I actually should have that on the table and let that hang long, because that bottom part is causing me trouble when it hits the ground. But still, I think it's where I want it to be. So, let's see how this is doing. You know, it didn't really go through. I may have to do the layers separate. I am going to go ahead and use a pin straight through the layers so that I can then mark, because my pin was not, when you have a new pin, it's pretty wet and it will go straight through all the layers, but my pin's a little on the dry side. So I've just put in some pins along that area. And now that it's through all the layers, now I'll lift it and mark, like little marks. There's a lot of construction going on in our neighborhood too. Our neighbors have some backyard stuff going on. They have a construction company, so a lot of equipment boom in my studio here. It's like we're having earthquakes or something. So see, I'm just where the pin is, just kind of marking that so that I can see that when I remove the layers from each other. I know I make some seamstresses cringe when I use the purple pin, but I've been using it successfully for many years, like maybe 30. And I do have little purple marks straight down, so I've got that. And I do have them on the inside layer as well. So that's good. So now while it's on the mannequin, I'm going to cut the tulle layer straight down. The trick is on this, tell me guys, when you guys do your tulle layers, because there's probably some different ways of doing it, do you cut straight up and stop? Or do you find that if you were to do more of a U, that it's a little stronger? The hard part is that tulle is a little weak, and when you have a split there, it has a tendency to want to open. What I've been thinking about doing is taking a matching applique, maybe, and I think that's what I'm gonna do. I think I might be able to find one close, or if I can't, maybe steal a little part of this and put it right above the slit, and I think that's going to keep it from, when she's, you know, splitting it open, of it ripping more. So I think what I'm gonna do is just cut straight up, and then I am going to find an applique to put right here. Nice even cuts. Try not to make any, like, what do you call those, like rough edges. Try to make it where it just continues. I just kind of scoot it up, scoot it up, scoot it up, scoot it up. And I've got all 3 layers right here. Right there. So now we've got the tulle layers done, and now we're going to end up cutting this layer right here. Do I have enough marking to? I think I'm just going to cut it while it's right here because the marking is pretty good. So I'm going to cut it, but then I'm going to create right above it. I'm going to create kind of a false seam. So I'm going to come up here behind the appliques and start to pinch it and actually make a seam, and so that when I do a rolled hem, that it has somewhere to roll. The other way you could do it, and it wouldn't matter on these because you kind of need to be able to see it anyway, is to make a U. So you go up and down, and that way you can do your rolled hem like this. But I think I'm going to make a false seam right here, and especially since I'm going to try to find an applique to put here. Do a false seam on each of the inner layers. I guess it wouldn't be a false seam if it really is a seam, but it wasn't there. It didn't go all the, it won't go all the way up. Okay. Here's my other one. Let's see. Right there. I was just thinking, what always happens too is when you have these full skirts is that this layer and that layer, all of the layers kind of collapse around each other. I'm thinking since I'm going to put an applique here, I'm almost thinking of sewing through all the layers so that they all swing together. I've never done that before. I usually just leave them all free. I have tacked it before where it was kind of had a loose tack, like, you know, like a little piece of thread lead. Okay, here we go. Straight down, straight down, straight down. And voila. Okay, so now all I need to do is on each of these layers create a false seam and then do a rolled hem on each of those layers. And when I was doing the hem, I did not finish my rolled hem. I only did one single layer because I think when I do the slit and do the rolled layer, then I think on the bottom I'm going to finish my rolled hem on that. So, okay, let's take it to the sewing machine. Okay, here we are at the sewing machine, and here's my pin holding the layers together, but that was mainly just to show where she wanted it and how high. So now my tulle layer is finished. I just have to be careful not to pull on it because it will rip. And then here is my top lining layer, and I have kind of marked it so that I knew what was straight, because I'm going to, here's the slit that I've cut, and I am going to go in here and kind of create a seam straight up, and I'm going to do the same thing on this layer here, and that's mainly to make it so I can easily do a rolled hem nice and square. So I'll flip that upside down, look at my marking, pinch that together. Doesn't even have to be that big of a seam. And unlike many seamstresses, I do a lot of pinning. I just want everything to land just right. You probably, if you're good at it, you can just pinch it and sew it. I just want to make sure that my seam doesn't get off. And what I'm doing is, instead of going all the way up into the waist, because I don't want to take that waist out, is I'm going up a little higher than the appliques on the other side to hide it. And I'm going to kind of start fading it in. So I start with like no seam pretty much, and just kind of slowly fade it out into an actual seam. I wonder if I can bring you right in here so you can see that. Let me see if I can do that. Okay, it's hard to tell because it's all white and I'm on the inside, but this is my waistband up here. And then this right here where I've got it 2 pins is actually the slit and how far she wants it to be. I have this area marked right here because I know that's about where my appliques on the outside of the dress start. So I want to be the seam above that to end. And I don't want to have to take out the waistband. So all I'm going to do, this bodice is fighting me, but I'm going to go, can you see, I am just pretty much off of the edge, or right on the edge right there. And I'm going to just back stitch to kind of get started heading in. And I'm not going to go out quickly. I want it to be a very smooth transition. And I know I have all the way till here before I get to a real seam size. So I'm just slowly kind of getting a little wider. And I think I'm just going to do the 1/4 inch, which is the edge of my presser foot. So I'm just going to finish that along the edge of my presser foot. I tried to go over my pin there. You can remove them before you have to go over them, but it folds. Okay, so here is the mark right here. Here is the slit, and here is the mark where she wants it to probably go. I'm going to go right to that and stay at, put my spot in, and I'm going to back up. And since that's a slit, I usually will do a little stronger than normal. Pull that out. Okay, and I'll probably go to the ironing board after I'm done with both, because if you see I'm on the bias, that's why it's all twisted like that. But I'm going to lay it down flat, and here's my inner layer. I'm going to do the exact same thing. Now the thing is about lining layers on the inside, they're backwards. So if you notice that the part that touches your body is the kind of outside seam, and the part that then touches this part is the inside. So you'll do it a little backwards. So just follow your seams, other seams, and do your seams the same as that one. I'm going to do the same one, just like the other one. And like I said, it'll feel a little twisty because a lot of these fabrics are cut on the bias instead of with the grain. Basically what a bias means is fabric has lines that weave like this and this, and when a skirt or whatever is cut on the bias, it means they've turned it like this, so it kind of stretches. And so that's why when you're sewing fabrics that have a weave and it's like this, they're really firm and nice and solid. And when they're turned like that, they're very stretchy. See, there's parts that are stretchy and parts that are not. So learning which way is your bias and which way is the regular salvage. The salvage just means the end of the bolt, the edge. So there's a salvage side, and it always goes with the grain, but knowing which way your grain goes is half the battle. Once again, kind of even that out. And right where it's marked, you probably can't see it on camera, but I can see the dot where it's marked. Back and forth really good. And then I'm going to cut that up just a little bit and over just a little bit so that that part of the seam can be open and the other part can be laid down. So it's going to be easier to show you on the ironing board. Here is the innermost lining layer, and you can see I trimmed it and I pushed it that way, and this whole seam I'll push that way. And see, what I'm gonna do is I will come up, kind of do a rolled hem here, and take that rolled hem all the way up. All the way up. Then I'll cross over and I'll do a rolled hem all the way on that side. That's how that works. Let me do this other side. This is the other seam, and you can see this skirt is cut way more on the bias than the other one because this is the outer skirt. So once again, I've cut it so that will open that way, that will open that way. And pressing this part for the rolled hem isn't important, but you can see the difference. Now notice my purple gets a lot darker when you iron it, but I don't have to worry about water on this one, and I can actually just, let me show you how to remove that. Test your fabrics, but this lining layer is fine with this. I got it a little bit wet. Here is my purple. Let's see, can you see it right here? And as I steamed it, or as I pressed it, it got darker, but I got it a little bit wet. And that disappears, except for that it's on the inside right there, and it will, about a day or so, it'll be gone anyway. See? Gone. This is a baby wipe, a Huggies. I like Huggies, and it has no perfumes, no dyes, no, just the purest one you can find, so that it won't stain your dresses or anything like that. So, but okay, I'm going to do just the rolled hem up and back on the slit. Okay, here I have been pressing open my seams. This one of the layers was quite twisty because of it being on the biased. So just a heads up, sometimes just pressing it helps if you're getting like a twisty seam. Or I often will take my nail kind of like this and stretch the thread back the direction I want it to go, and then press it. And so you can see, if you come close, this one's a little bit wet from my steaming, but I have basically sewed up one side. So I sewed up one side and then squared it off and then came down the other side and finished it up on both of those. And so we now have nice slits right there. Okay guys, I'm doing this slit and I've got the entire hem done. I've got the slit opened up here. And I am not liking something. This is why every single dress is you have to be willing to adjust to what might work for one gown may not work for another. So in the past, on these big skirts, I have cut the skirt. Let me get you a little close so you can see. So you can see on this layer I actually did put an applique right here at the opening. So we've got all the tulle layers open. I'm trying to find that tulle layer. And I'm going to kind of connect those here in a minute so they don't go separately. But then we had, let me take the pins out, I've been playing with it. On both lining layers, I did a rolled hem going down to the regular hem. When it opens up, I don't like how this is looking right here. So, can't wait till these are connected because I cannot find the other part. This is one of the problems with slits like this, is that the bride assumes that she's going to have her leg just hanging out of it. But this all just closes back on itself. So you have to warn the bride that when you do the full skirts, it's not like they're seen in the pictures online, because that bride isn't walking. That bride is just sticking her leg out. And so they can get some pictures with it sticking out. But all these layers tend to go across to themselves. So I'm gonna, you'll see me here in a little bit, connect the tulle layers. And I tried a minute ago to connect all, like loosely with a loose thread right here. But then the look of these two kind of wiggly raw edges made me want to put them together. So I started pinning it together thinking maybe I could tack it, or maybe I could do something different. I just didn't like the look of it. So now that I pinned it on both sides all the way down, I was like, well, how do I connect them without it looking dumb and seeing that ugly raw edge, not raw edge, that ugly, even though it is a nice rolled hem, it just doesn't look finished. And I think it's because of the weight of this fabric. This is not a nice satin for a wedding gown on the outside. This is just lining fabric. So I think what I'm going to do, believe it or not, is I do like it when the lining is all connected, but I don't want to see the edge. I think I'm going to turn it inside out and sew it together, kind of like go on the inside and sew a seam together so they are kind of like a bagged hem, or like a pillowcase or whatever you want to call it, so that they are all one. That's what I'm going to do. And I think I'm going to like that a lot better than seeing this flip to the wrong side and all of that. So I've done it on other dresses and it did not look this bad. And I think it's just this fabric. So let me turn it inside out. I'm going to sew it like I would kind of a bagged hem, not down at the bottom, but just the slit. And I think I'm going to like that a lot better. Okay, what can I say? I'm a mess after this one, but I've redone it and redone it. I'm just being honest with you. I want you to see the real process, that just because you get frustrated with something doesn't mean you're alone in that. I've been sewing a long time and I still run across things that frustrate me. And a lot of brides want slits in their dresses. They want it to look just like the pictures they see on Pinterest. And the truth is, when you have a full skirt like this, they're never going to get that. So you have to be upfront with them right at the beginning. And then I was dealing with not only the fullness of the skirt, but the fact that the inner lining was not cut on the bias, and the outer lining, or the outer should be a satin layer, but it's a lining layer, was cut on the bias. And so when those pieces were laying, the outer one, because it was cut on the bias, was trying to turn and look all funny. So then I sewed them together. What I did is I flipped them inside out, sewed a seam all the way up and down, turned them around, pressed them, and for the most part I am happy with that look because it's less obvious. But over here on this side we still have one that's cut on the bias and one that's not, and it keeps trying to turn. I've kind of taken it apart, tried to sew it a little different, but the point is she's going to come in, she's going to stick her leg through it, and she's going to be happy. And I've done my best to disguise all of my, this little fake seam I had to put in here, try to secure it with an applique right here, and I beaded it just so that she wouldn't have that ripping on her. So I have done my best, and the hem's done, that's done, all the bodice work is done. All I have to do is bustle this really long train, and I was already trying, and I'm not going to film that because this one's a nightmare. It's got so much craziness behind it, but I will in another video conquer another, I think somebody's calling me. I will in another video conquer a bustle similar to this, but I'm a bit of a mess from being up underneath the thing, so I'm gonna cut out for today and we will see you in the next video. Love you all. Happy sewing, not frustrated sewing, and love you. Have a good day. And it was my husband sending me cute little kisses, so I can't complain about that. See you guys in the next video.